To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning and welcome to the Point. Former President Donald Trump, by all indications, remains at his Mar-a-Lago club on Palm Beach this morning, days after he was indicted by that New York grand jury. The former president expected to fly to New York on Monday evening and be arraigned the next day. The charges against him will be unsealed then publicly. Our Matt Cesney looks into the charges the former president may be facing.
It's possible the case of hush money and business records may just be a hint of what's coming.
I'm expecting it to be more than a focus on a hush money payment.
Mark Schnapp is a former federal criminal division chief in South Florida who says the New York case has to be a lot deeper than many expect.
I think you're going to see a lot more, and probably issues regarding how he ran his business, the Trump Organization.
Trump's business records do appear to be at the heart of the case, but legal experts point out that is likely just a misdemeanor, but it could make a jump to a felony.
I know that everybody talks about this crime as being on the low end of potential violations, but Matt, these laws are put in place for a reason. And a minor violation is still a violation.
David Weinstein is a former South Florida federal prosecutor.
Will they be the misdemeanor of falsification of business records? Will it be the felony because they're going to tie that into another crime that was committed, presumably some sort of campaign finance violation?
That would take the case to a new level, and one where Trump will likely fight aggressively.
He's going to say, look, I thought these were properly recorded. I acted on advice of counsel.
Even with all those potential counts, legal experts say out of all the Trump investigations going on, this one in New York may be the least concerning and perhaps the easiest to defend. At PBI, Matt Cesney, WPTV, News Channel 5.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis put this tweet out Thursday night saying in part the weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It is un-American. He goes on to say, quoting, the Soros-backed Manhattan district attorney has consistently bent the law to downgrade felonies and to excuse criminal misconduct. Yet now he's stretching the law to target a political opponent. And the governor added, quote, Florida will not assist in an extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with this Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda, end quote. Brian Crowley, our News Channel 5 political analyst, joining us now. Brian, first take.
Well, I think the first thing everyone ought to do is just calm down. You know, we're going to find out a lot more on Tuesday when the indictment is finally released. And I think that the leadership in our country ought to be working on keeping everybody calm during these unusual circumstances. It is the judicial system at work. And, you know, the fact that it's a former president, that our founding fathers said former presidents became little C citizens when they left office. So, yeah, the district attorney in Manhattan better have one heck of a case, but we don't know that yet, so we need to make sure that everybody stays calm. One
conservative editorial I read said, though, you know, you were really opening a Pandora's box for future prosecutions, and the sense you get from those who criticize this indictment is you're going to indict on this stuff against a former president of the United States. That's at least the sense when you read a lot of the conservative editorial pages. The liberal ones are making the point that, well, the law is the law is the law. And that's a tough needle to thread in a country that's so polarized already.
Yeah, but everybody who's writing about this stuff, we don't know what this stuff is yet. And that's my point. I mean, everybody is ranting and raving on both sides about
for an indictment yet to be unsealed.
And we don't know. You know, there's some people speculate that we're going to find out that there's a lot more there when this thing is released. I'm not going to pretend I know anything until Tuesday.
It's only the beginning, as has been indicated, of his potential legal travails. You have the issues about classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. President Biden also faces that same issue right now. You have the issue going on in Georgia about whether there were efforts to flip the vote there. You have issues surrounding the January 6th attack and potential charges that Democrats on the special committee that investigated that one filed, including trying to incite an insurrection. I mean, this is the beginning of a long legal fight and takes us into uncharted territory, as so many have said, as we look at somebody who simultaneously is running for president of the United States and is able to do so legally even as he fights these charges.
Well, you know, some of our uncharted territories, we elected a president even after hearing he had potentially been involved with a porn star. So, you know, our parameters for, people, you know, lots of people supported Bill Clinton after the Monica Lewinsky scandal. You know, maybe we need to rethink, you know, what it is we look at when we support people for public office. Maybe we need a higher standard of conduct for what we expect of people. Donald Trump has been involved in legal issues since he was a young businessman. This is nothing new.
I also, Brian, spoke with local members of Congress shortly after the report of the indictment came out. Here's what Democrat Jared Moskowitz, whose congressional district includes parts of Palm Beach County, had to say. Your reaction, Congressman, to the indictment?
Well, listen, you know, it's not a day to celebrate. It's a bad day for our country, but no one is above the law in this country. And the president should be afforded every constitutional right that anybody else who is indicted in this country is afforded. But, you know, listen, you know, for those folks that attended those rallies and were chanting, "Lock her up," it was ridiculous then. And I hope they realize why it was so harmful and it's ridiculous now.
Speak to the millions of Trump supporters and to the former president himself, who says this is nothing but a witch hunt.
Well, listen, he's going to get his day in court. We have a judicial system in this country. I hope he's afforded all the rights, just like anybody else would be afforded in this process. And so he will be able to highlight his case both in the courtroom and in the public sphere. Everyone, you know, hopefully will allow that process to take place. You know, we obviously want people to be calm, you know, but this is the first time in the history that this has ever happened in this country, which is why I'm saying it's not a good moment. There's nothing to celebrate here that a president has been indicted in the United States of America, even if he broke the law. You know, he should be prosecuted if he broke the law. No one is above the law, but it's not a day to celebrate.
I also spoke with Treasure Coast Republican Congressman Brian Mast, whose district also includes part of Palm Beach County as well. Your reaction to the indictment, Congressman Mast?
Yeah, first reaction to the indictment and acknowledging that we haven't actually read it yet. We don't actually know what it is. We think it's about alleged hush money payments, as they've said to Stormy Daniels. I think it's entirely political. I think it's a continuation of the weaponization that the Biden administration and people on the left have done against people on the right. That's my opinion on the issue. I think it's more of an indictment against a political movement and against a political candidate than against a former president. Those are my first reactions. And I would capture it with two letters. I'd just call it, I think it's BS.
Congressman, what do you say to Trump opponents or Trump critics who say no one's above the law?
Nobody's above the law. Now, I'm going to acknowledge here, I'm not an attorney. Here's one of the reasons that, again, I think total politics, total BS. My understanding, if this is an indictment that is related to a campaign finance violation, which is what we're being told that it is, has a statute of limitations of 5 years ago, of 5 years. This is a 2015, I believe, allegation. So I'm being told that the DAs up there would know this, would know that it would get thrown out, and therefore are just doing it as a game or a show, essentially. But again, this is based off something that there's not an indictment for us to read at this point.
And Congressman, in a country already so badly polarized, your thoughts and concerns. The former president was criticized early on for calling for protest. Your thoughts about that statement, your concerns about where we go next as a country.
Look, you should protest political weaponization of the government. We have the parameters to do it. It's enshrined in our First Amendment rights to petition the government to peaceably assemble. And you should do that. And I suspect that we all will do that. Not we all, but many of us will do that, me included. But in that, that's my reaction to it. If you disagree with something, this is the United States of America where you can still do that.
Brian, congressional take, both sides of the aisle, that continues to pour in even as we speak.
Well, there was no surprise from either one of them. It was the talking points on both sides.
Right, but valid talking points depending on your point of view.
Well, except you want both sides to emphasize that everybody should be calm. Mm-hmm. This is not, with Donald Trump's, suggestion of destruction and violence.
Well, and
they
Congressman
should be
Mast did
condemning
say
that.
peaceful protest, but well, no, he did, Brian, and you're allowed to protest in this country peacefully.
But you're not. But as an institution, you are not helping our judiciary and our system if you're talking about the weaponization of it. You know, nobody was talking about the weaponization when Governor Ron DeSantis decided to suspend a Democratic state attorney that he disagreed with on a political issue. You know, this is. You know, people need to recognize that if Donald Trump got a speeding ticket, he would accuse the police officer of being a Democrat out to get him. He would say the radar gun was rigged, and it would all be a scam. That's Donald Trump.
And in fairness, Democrats were arguing essentially that there was political weaponization during 2016 with Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately, that's become part of the language, part of the dialogue that makes it hard to see through all of this. So to your larger point, though, we're going to have to get there because we're just at the beginning of a long legal landscape. This is just the start of it, given what we know is teed up potentially involving the former president all at the same time he's running for office.
If we think the legal system in our country is this handicapped, is this dangerous, well, this is more than Donald Trump then. This is every single individual who's ever arrested who has to appear before what? A weaponized court, a weaponized judicial system? They're not going to get a fair trial? I mean, what are we saying about our judicial system? It's a lot more than Donald Trump.
And your overarching message is that the leadership in our country needs to say, is, listen, we have to have faith in the independence of the judiciary. And if we start tossing out our belief in any institutions, where are we? I hear that argument a lot.
And if we find him doing something wrong, we should go after it. If we find that this DA has a bad case, has badly handled it, and it's blown, then we should go after that DA. But we don't know anything till Tuesday.
Quickly before break, we can't take the pure politics in Florida out of this. You've got the former president and then Ron DeSantis. How does he move forward and play this politically as he's looking at a pending announcement for his own presidential campaign?
Well, right now, Ron DeSantis is trying to have it on both sides. At one point, he was talking about porn stars and how he had never been involved with one. And then with this, he suddenly became very, very aggressive in attacking the judiciary and the weaponization. And said he was not going to extradite Donald Trump, to help out in New York, which was a silly thing for the governor to say. And as we know, Donald Trump will soon be on his own plane flying to New York to go face the consequences of his actions.
Brian, as always, perspective appreciated. Brian will be with us on the flip side of the break, and we'll be back in a moment. Still to come, permitless carry in Florida, close to Governor DeSantis' desk, what the bill entails.